Yes, that's right. It's Joe here, live Joyrider TV, back with some more Q&A. Very exciting times, as always, where I'm going to be answering your most challenging catamaran sailing questions. All right, so we're just going to dive straight in and launching off. I've got Justin on board live in the live chat. Great to have you with us, Justin. And Justin did say, your yoga videos got me in trouble. Now my wife says I need to stretch. Yeah, just like big shout out to my wife, who is the yoga teacher who was in those videos. They were from back in the day of lockdown. Those videos were made. But Justin continues, in regard to rig tension on the Hobie 16, what is your general preference and what situations call for more tension or less tension? This is a great question, Justin, to kick off with. Firstly, when we're looking for power, what we're trying to do, it's going to sound quite obvious, when we're looking for power, we are trying to put as much power into the rig as possible. And if we look at the boat from behind or in front, it doesn't matter, is to keep as much power in the rig as we can. We want to have the mast so that it is straight up, so that, you know, the wind, this wind here, is kind of blowing from one side or the other of the mast. And if the rig isn't tight, what's going to happen is the rig is going to be allowed to go off to the side, which is going to automatically start dumping power from the rig, which when we're looking for power, we don't want that to happen. What we also want when we're looking for power is to be presenting more sail to the wind, which we'll do by having the mast slightly more upright, like this way. So in light winds, what we're doing with the rig tension is we're making it as tight as possible. But when we say as tight as possible, we're making it as tight as possible, but so the mast is still free to rotate. So how do you know if you've got too much rig tension on? The way that you know that you've got too much rig tension on is if the mast can't rotate. So there we are. Too much, no rotation. Do bear in mind with regards to the rotation of the mast, it might be that if it's making a grinding sound, like when you've got the boat on the beach, jib up, and you've cranked on some rig tension, if when you rotate the mast, it's making a grinding sound like metal on metal, then that might be that your mast pivot bearing has either worn out or is not even there. The mast pivot bearing, basically, you've got your mast step. Incidentally, that's the best mast step I've ever drawn. And then going into the mast step, you've got your mast base. So that would be like that. And there should be a bearing that sits in between. And the bearing is basically like a piece of plastic, which I think in the real world would last for the best part of a season. If it's with these bearings, sorry, this is a bit of a tangent, but with these bearings, it's like if you leave your mast up all the time without any tension on it, then if there's some wind comes through overnight, then what might happen is your mast might occasionally rotate, and every time it rotates, it's just going to grind away at your bearing slightly if your mast is up all of the time. Whereas if you either did something to prevent the mast from moving when you're not using the boat, that will prolong the life of your mast pivot bearing. We are going as deep as we ever have into the mast pivot bearing right now. and so if you prevent the mast from rotating when the boat is sat on land, that's going to make this last longer. If you do something that's going to stop the mast flopping around when the boat's on land, that is going to help the mast pivot bearing as well to last longer. So if you can hear grinding, you might have to check this, but the mast should be allowed to rotate freely, even when the rig tension is pulled on tight. So we're pulling it on tight, and we'll have it tight up until when we start getting to a point where we can trapeze. And when we can start trapezing, what you're going to start feeling, if the mast, the rig is really tight, is when you get a gust of wind, you're going to have this feeling like the boat really wants to fly the hull, but it doesn't want to go much faster. So it might start making the rudders feel pretty heavy, not particularly nice as well. So when you start getting into that hull lifting, starting to want to depower a bit, like if you're starting to have to sheet out a bit in the gusts, then that is the time when you should be loosening off the rig slightly. And when we talk about loosening off the rig, we're only talking about this much on the jib halyard. Max, that is probably more than the full range that we want to go on the jib halyard. But just try, like if you're out sailing with some good wind, you've had the rig tension pulled on pretty tight, then if you're getting that feeling that the boat doesn't want to go when you get a gust, just let off the smallest amount of rig tension, and the difference is really quite staggering in how your boat performs when the wind gets that little bit more. Now, a few things, I believe the word is caveat to that, is if your jib halyard, the actual rope, is not of a high quality and it stretches, then letting the rig tension off is going to basically make your rig way too loose, because every time you sheet in, that jib halyard is going to stretch and it's just going to pull, your mast's going to pull to the back anyway. So if you haven't got a high quality jib halyard, don't worry about loosening off the rig very much, I think. And especially if you've, let's say, low quality jib halyard and not using the kind of Aussie style jib halyard system, then pretty much every time you go out, you're going to want to crank it on as much as you can, because that's how much you're going to need. Okay, and this is a great question, Justin. I hope that helps. And this question is going to lead very nicely into Leo's preloaded question that he's got, which is on the Mast Rake. But before we go into Leo's question, I'm just going to check in with everybody who's checking in. And so we've got Hussein on board. Hussein has just upgraded his Joyrider channel membership to the all-new Joyrider Academy. Oh, yes. So as you may be aware or may not, I've been producing some classroom-style tutorials, modules. Each module is 5 lessons. Some of them are actually 6. And with a total of over 50 minutes of great high-quality instruction. So at the moment, I've produced 4 modules on YouTube through the Joyrider Academy channel membership scheme. I think there's only 2 modules which I've actually finished uploading, just waiting to upload the others. I should get those up this weekend, but that is giving everybody time to digest what is already there. These modules, the Joyrider Academy is also available on Patreon. So there's been quite a lot go into this already. And every week I'm going to be producing another module for these Joyrider classroom sessions. So that's another 50 minutes of tutorial every week on a different topic. So yeah, check it out. And if you think this looks pretty good, then sign up. Also signed up, we've got Jitis Page Dimas. Sorry about the pronunciation there. Who's also signed up. Great to have you on board in the academy for some of this great knowledge transfer. It's kind of like, it was Hussein's idea, that the Q&As, there's such a lot of information there, but your chance of finding that bit of information that you need, that you want when you go looking for it, it's going to take you longer to look for it than it is to actually watch it again. So I went about creating some sort of tailored courses to save you that kind of part of the journey. Thanks also to Hussein for the super sticker, getting the ball rolling in keeping the Q&A ad free. Yes, very good. All the channel members are on board. Cucks Ollie is here. Oliver in Germany. Hey ho to everyone. Have a great time. And please hit the like button. Nice one, Oliver. Oliver, of course, you may have seen in the video from Nacras in Holland back in April this year. Oliver came with me on the Nacras 570 Mark II. Great stuff. Hussein said the Joyrider Academy content is a gem. Thanks, Joe, for the great videos. Invaluable material. Thanks very much, Hussein. Without your idea, I probably wouldn't have done it by now. Cuck Solly says, I have to work. Look later. All right, nice one, Oliver. Great to have you on board. All right, also on board, we've got channel member Ryan in Maui. Also with the super sticker. Thanks very much, Ryan. Keeping the Q&A ad free. This is we're off to a flying start, I would have to say. Okay, also in the live chat, we've got Levi, I believe. Moto Dude. Good morning from Florida. Oh, yes, it is Levi. Great stuff. And we also in the live chat, we've got Hands on board. Self-tacking. The tornado is ready. Great stuff. Glad to hear it. But I dare say she's not on the water at the moment. Must be getting pretty chilly in Germany at these times. All right. So next preloaded question. And this one, as I said, is from Leo, who I think is in Holland. Could be wrong. Leo says, can you explain why sailing upwind, the performance improves when the mast is somewhat further back? Yes. So what this is all about is balancing the center of effort of the rig with our center of lateral resistance. And it's kind of like how much we are wanting to load up the rudders as well. So if we think of, I'm going to use this. If we think of our center of effort as being here, and this goes for centerboard boats as well, or boats with a skeg hull. Center of effort kind of here. When we have the center of effort further back, what it's doing is it's putting more pressure. Let's start off with the centerboard boat, 'cause it's a bit more kind of logical, let's say. Center of lateral resistance is here. So we're wanting to put the center of effort bit just to the back of the center of lateral resistance, because by doing that, what it's doing is if that's our, let's have our center of lateral resistance again, just there, it's putting pressure behind the center of lateral resistance, which is going to help to drive the boat upwind. But it's not like the only thing that we've got providing lift and drive upwind is the centerboards, the asymmetric hull, or the skeg hull. It's also the rudders on the boat. The rudder blades provide a great amount of the lift, which is helping to get us upwind. So if we don't have the mast far enough back, then we're not loading up the rudders enough, and we're not making good use of that lift. That is why when we're sailing upwind, we don't want to be going all the way to the front of the boat. You know, this was, I think a lot of people have looked at this sort of technique, especially in light winds, is going upwind, getting the crew, if this is the crew, getting the crew right on the bow to drive the bow down. It feels really nice because it goes much quieter, because we are, have I got a rudder? Yes, because we're lifting the rudder somewhat out of the water. So we're getting, it feels like we're getting less drag from the rudder, but what we're actually doing is we're getting less lift from the rudder by getting that far forwards. So that is why we're wanting to keep the boat flat. So we've got a good amount of hull in the water, but also we've still got the full rudder blade in the water. So we're getting lift off the rudder blade, which is going to help us to get more height upwind. Now, on certain boats, especially the boats that carry a tremendous amount of mast rake, the obvious one is the Hobie 16. But now I've done my, what would you call it, my initiation into the Formula Wave class. I think the Formula Wave, actually, to look at the boat, carries more mast rake than anything else. Now, this is a really good way of highlighting this point. And the reason that the Formula Wave carries so much mast rake, it's not that much, but it's a lot, is because on the Wave, if you didn't know, the Formula Wave is basically a Hobie Wave where the rules have been slightly loosened to allow other manufacturers' parts to be used on the boats. That is pretty much the bottom line. But the front beam on the Wave is really far forwards. So if we didn't have a load of mast rake on the boat, we wouldn't, you know, our center of effort would be so far forwards in comparison to the center, well, the center of lateral resistance, which would be kind of like here. So we need to have the mast that far back when our center of lateral resistance is so far away. So on the 16 as well, what becomes a far greater aspect piece, part of our center of lateral resistance and our lift provider, the rudder blade becomes so much more, because we haven't got a centerboard or daggerboard or an efficient skeg hull like you'd have. The efficient skeg hulls would be like on a Dart 18, but more recently on like a Nacra 570, which we we're just talking about. Very efficient skeg hulls. So it doesn't have to carry quite as much mast rake to load up the rudders to get that kind of boost and lift upwind. There we go. I hope that puts a bit of clarification on this topic of Mast Rake. Okay, thank you very much. All right. Okay, so Hans says it's the self-tacking jib for the Wildwind tornado that he has what would the word be, refurbished. Great job, Hans. So yes, exactly, that boat is not on the water because it's packed up here in Vasiliki. Yeah, so that'll be really nice when that gets put back on the boat. Great job, Hans. Thanks very much for your efforts there. All right, Levi says the Hobie Formula Wave regatta is happening in the Florida Keys this weekend. Good luck to all the sailors there. I'm stuck working today. Okay, maybe you could get down there this weekend. Who knows? Yeah, but have a great one, everybody who's taking part in that regatta or any other regattas this weekend. Big shout out to Justin for the super sticker. Thanks very much, Justin. Keeping the Q&A ad-free. And thanks very much to the Digger 76 for your super sticker. All right, and I'm going to get on to your question very shortly, the Digger 76. Thank you very much. Keeping the Q&A ad-free. All right, so Boris is on board. Boris says greetings from Florida. Yes, big Formula Wave regatta going on in Florida this weekend, so I'm told. So yeah, if you can get down there, go and check it out, say hello to some people. Should be a really good vibe. The Formula Wave crowd, they bring a good time. Okay, Boris says, how can I add the keep the Q&A ad free? I think you've just found out, Boris, by the looks of it. Or is the super sticker the same? Yes, that is exactly it. So thanks very much for your super sticker, keeping the Q&A ad free. All right. So the Digger 76 says, I'm a fairly decent dinghy sailor. I was recently gifted a Topcat. What are the most important differences getting into catamaran sailing except for the speed? Yeah, that's a good question. I think the first, possibly the most significant difference is the time that it takes to perform a maneuver or just to steer the boat. If you imagine with a catamaran, the two hulls are very much, it would almost be like the same as a difference between driving a truck and driving a train, because the train obviously runs on rails, whereas the truck runs on the road, and you have much more maneuverability. So I'd say that's number one, your lack of maneuverability. So like when you are, let's just look at how you would have to go about going for your first, being a good dinghy sailor, going for your first sail on a catamaran. Sorry, just cleaning the board as I talk about this, as I think about how we're going to go about doing this. But so the first thing that we're going to need to look at is our sailing area, and I'm assuming that your sailing area is a reasonable size. Like if you've been sailing monohulls in a river, let's say, then the river might not be, unless it's a very big one, might not be quite so appropriate for the catamaran. So we need a reasonable size sailing area, because not only because of the speed of the catamaran, but because it's not as maneuverable as the monohull. But so then when we actually go to look at our launch, let's say we've got an obstruction here. This is the land. This is the water. And let's give us a wind direction of straight on shore, because that seems to be the way. So what we would want to do before launching Actually, if we backpedal back to before we launch, if at all possible with the Catamaran, get the mainsail up or get both sails up while the boat is still on the beach. Excuse me 1 second. Sorry, it's getting a bit warm in the Joyrider TV studio. Okay, yeah, so get the boat ready as much as you can before you launch. Because like with a lot of monohull sailing, with traditional monohulls, you might put the boat into the water and then afterwards have one person hold the boat, one person hoist the mainsail. But on a catamaran, it is largely a two-person job. Although on the Topcat, it's a bit easier. Like on a Hobie 16, it is a little bit more of an effort getting your mainsail up. So boat is rigged. We're going to put the boat in the water. Then this is where the first really important thing comes into play on a catamaran. And that is when you're holding your boat in the water, or when your boat is in the water, it is very important that it's being held near to the front. If you try to hold the boat towards the back of the boat in the water, what will happen, especially if there's some wind, you know, any wind above 5 knots, is what will happen is the boat will try to effectively sail off without you. So hold the boat at the front. That's going to keep the boat into the wind. That is the first thing that you're going to come across. Second thing is positive, easier thing. On a catamaran, you don't have to worry, unless you're sailing a modern Formula 18, you don't have to worry about a centerboard or a dagger board before you can sail, especially with a Topcat or with any other skeg hull boats, asymmetric hull boats. The boat will hold a good course without any need for a centerboard, which means you don't have to take the boat particularly deep before you can get on and get sailing. All you need to do is get it away from the beach enough so that you can get the rudders down about halfway. And then, you know, if let's say we had to go out this way to the left, take the boat as far as you can to the right, have the crew hold the boat on the windward side at the bow, you jump on, they just push the bow off a few degrees, then they jump on, but so that you've got enough space to clear any obstructions on the other side. Cool. That is a good start. And then, all right, to be honest, there are quite a lot of videos on Joyrider TV on the topic of tacking, because that is obviously a major difference between monohulls and catamarans. Because the monohull is so maneuverable, you can get away with whatever technique you like to tack the boat, whereas on a catamaran, you do need to use some good technique if your tacking is going to be successful. So something to bear in mind, do check out. I think there's a video with the thumbnail that says, "Why can't I tack?" That's a good one. There's many tacking videos. They are all excellent on the YouTube channel. So when it actually comes to the sailing around, then as long as you've got space, no problems there. But the next thing which we're going to need to address is when you are coming back in, the boat is going to go quite fast. So you definitely need to think about the route that you're going to take to come back in, so that you have got plenty of space to turn the boat into the wind so that you can stop. So a few things to keep in mind there. I'm hoping if you've got any other specific questions the Digger 76, then do put them in the live chat. Otherwise, I'm going to leave that there because we could just keep going for quite some time, and we have got other things to talk about as well. But hope that helps. All right, we've got on board. We've got Kevin in Illinois. Great to have you with us, Kevin. It's a toasty 12 degrees Fahrenheit here. Almost time for the ice boats to come out. Very nice. Okay, thanks very much to Boris for the super sticker, keeping the Q&A ad-free. Thank you. Levi says for the Formula Wave event in Florida, looks like 34 boats. That's a good turnout. I think, does Florida keep going the whole year? There's a question for you, sending questions the other way. Like, are there still regattas going on in Florida, like in January, for example? All right, Boris says, you are very welcome. Small price to pay for we all learn from you. Thank you very much. All right, Trisha is on board. Trisha in the UK. I was out on my MiniCat guppy on Tuesday on Coniston Water in the Lake District. Very nice. I hope it went well and it wasn't too cold. And I hope you had a favourable wind. Great stuff getting out there. All right, Justin says, I have to go put up the Christmas lights. Thanks for the response. And I look forward to the future Academy modules. Yeah, great stuff, Justin. And great to have you on board. Yeah. Okay. By the way, if you are in either of the either on Patreon or a channel member and signed up to the Academy for the classroom sessions, if there is a specific topic that you think would make a really good module, do let me know, because I'm not saying I need help coming up with the ideas for the modules, but I think I've got the next 12 all mapped out. But after that, then I'm sure inspiration will strike. But the intention is to get 20 modules done before April. But if there's a module that you'd like to have out sooner rather than later, let me know, and I can look at how and when I can put that together. There we go. Thank you. All right, Mr. Tony KP is on board in Ebeltoft, Denmark. Dark, rainy, and cold. All right. Sorry to hear that, Mr. Tony KP. Whereas we've got Dan on board in Hawaii, where it is year round. Okay. Yeah, I am coming at some point, I'm sure. Okay, Levi in Florida says, we sail all winter. The wind gets pretty good. This is Florida, by the way. There are basically year-round regattas here. The Claremont Multihull Association races waves and 16s, and Gulfport Yacht Club races as well. All right, Tracy's on board in Utah. We are always going full Utah these days. Great to have you on board, Tracy. All right, Levi continues. Other weekend in Hobie 16. Tracy says, in Utah, we have snow. Yeah, I've heard you've got some pretty good winter sports going on in parts of Utah. Great stuff. Okay. Nice. I am coming, as well as coming to Florida, coming to Hawaii. I'm also going to be hitting Utah at some point. Maybe next year, who knows? But the guys from the Rockport Reservoir have put in a good bid to get me to come over. All right. So Hussein says, please, can you explain the relationship between sailor's weight and mast rake? All right. Yeah. So what could we say about? Yeah, actually on the 16, it is definitely a thing. So what we're doing on the 16 because this is let's say this is old information, but we're just going, it's good to go over stuff again sometimes. So let's have a boat and we'll have a mast. So on a Hobie 16, because we are adjusting the rig tension like we spoke about earlier for the differences in wind strength. So the forestay and the jib halyard, this is how we adjust our rig tension at the front of the boat. So the way that we adjust the rake in a kind of, it's a kind of backwards way of doing it, because what we're actually doing, rather than adjusting the mast rake, we're adjusting how much we're going to limit the mast from going forwards, rather than on a let's say a more traditional boat or a more performance boat, a more modern boat like an F-18 or a Tornado. We do the mast rake on the forestay and then the rig tension on the shrouds, whereas on a Hobie 16 or 14 or Hobie Wave, now I've learned, we're doing this the opposite way round. Just like to say thank you very much to Marco for the super sticker, keeping the Q&A ad free. Yeah, thank you very much, Marco. Hope the information is like music to your ears, all this good stuff. All right. Yeah, so standard sort of settings that we would use on a 16. If it is a stock Hobie 16 with you know, factory length shrouds and yeah, that's all we need to know. Then if we've got our stay adjuster that looks like this, then we'll have a number of holes in the stay adjuster. Then there'd be a bit of a gap with no holes towards the bottom, and we need to make sure if this information is only correct if we are using the bit that I call the twisty bit. And then the twisty bit will then go on to the shroud anchor pin, which goes through the gunnel of the boat. Does everyone understand my picture? I hope so, because it is a pretty good picture. So we've got a pin that goes through there, pin that goes through there, and then this is where our adjustment is in these settings here. So if I was sailing predominantly light winds and sailing with a heavy team, I would go for the shrouds in the fourth hole as standard. What we're doing by having the mast more upright is, like we're saying, for the rig tension, it's all related. And by having the mast further forwards, we're just going to put as much power as we can into the rig. And we're still going to have that power if we're not changing this when the wind gets stronger. Because you could say, well, how about we just loosen the rig more on the jib halyard? We don't want to over loosen the rig on the jib halyard, because like we were saying before, when we loosen the rig on the jib halyard, the idea is that we're letting the mast come back more and leaning to the side, but we only want it to lean to the side so much. And if you yeah, so if it's getting windy and we've set the rig with on hole number 4, I count the holes from the bottom personally. It's just the way that I've always been. If we feel that we've let off, you know, this much rig tension and we're still feeling like the boat really doesn't want to go when it's windy, then perhaps that is when we want to think about moving the shroud down one hole and then having the same amount of tension, which is actually going to keep, let's say, the amount of leeward mast lean is going to be the same, but the mast is going to be further back by having the shrouds down another hole. But okay, so let's put some numbers on this. So we are 150 kilos or more will go in hole number 4. If we're between 150 and 130, then we'll go in hole number 3. If we are less than 130, then we'll go for hole number 2. So if we're always sailing single-handed, then I would go hole number 2 as a standard setting. There we go. Yeah, so I think that is about the size of it with the Mast Rake settings on the 16 there. Okay, I'd just like to say thanks very much to Mr. Tony KP, who has just given us a Danish crown super sticker. Thank you very much, Mr. Tony KP. Okay, we are definitely keeping the Q&A ad-free. Thank you very much. Okay, so where are we up to? Yeah, Levi says several back to Florida, several bigger organized regattas throughout the state too. You're always welcome to join. I would love to. Yeah, I'd love to. There we go. I'll just leave it at that. Florida is a great place, a great sailing state and boating in general because of the tropical weather. Very nice. Trisha says, I miss sailing. Yay, come on out. All right. Yeah, I have pretty much packed up for the winter. Like the 16 is packed up, the Tornado's packed up. And but this is the great thing, that people who don't believe in the inflatable boat, this is what they're missing is, yes, the MiniCat 420 is currently packed. It's just in the next room. But it is so easy just to put it in the car. Like if there's a nice day with some good wind, put it in the car, take it to any beach, anywhere where there's water, pump it up using an electric pump these days, become civilized, and then have a nice sail, you know, with the family, with someone else's family, you know, children's birthday party, pump up the MiniCat, do some joyrides for the kids. Lovely. That is the beauty of the MiniCat. It is low effort, easy. Just pump it up. You're good to go. Very nice. That's what I think anyway. All right. So Levi says, do you feel like it's better to learn to sail a Hobie Cat 16 single-handed under main only or under jib only starting out? Okay, I would say starting out, if you've got a Hobie 16, use the main and the jib, just in slightly lighter wind. So yeah, it is one of the big things when you're starting cat sailing. You've got to resist the temptation, unless you've got someone experienced who could come with you, to not go out when it's too windy. Because I can't remember where I said this last, but the most delicate thing on your boat is the confidence of the people on the boat. And if you go out and, you know, you're thinking, yeah, that's a good wind, you can see someone out there flying the hull, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll have a bit of that. And you haven't sailed a catamaran before, and you launch your boat in 20 knots of wind, then there is a chance your confidence might take a hit. And once your confidence has taken a hit, it does take quite a lot to get it back. So start off in less wind. But on a 16, it sails so much nicer, so much easier with the main and the jib. So I would say start off main and jib. Second choice would be just the main, and don't even think about just the jib. I could say period, but I have done a few just the jib videos, but they were in mega wind, because a catamaran sailing just on the jib is not going to sail upwind very well. In my testing, the Hobie 16, yes, it does sail upwind just on the jib in a very strong wind. I should do some light wind testing, I hear you cry. All right, I will do. But yes, so just the main or main and jib, best choice, because the jib is really going to help you with the tacking. There we go. All right. So Tracy says, I live close to Rockport Reservoir. Great stuff. I dare say that everybody has finished sailing there now for the winter. I would think so. Yeah, I saw pictures of snow, and even the hardcore guys. Snow, I think snow has got to be where you draw the line. All right, Levi says the mini Cat 420 is such a cool little boat, but man, it's speedy. If it was a bit cheaper, I'd scoop one up. It's in a small powerboat money here where I live. Okay. Yeah, I believe the retail price for a MiniCat 420 is somewhere in the region of about five units of currency. Okay, we've got on board Unplugged Mementos. Great to have you on board. And Unplugged Mementos says, is it worth buying a Hobie Cat from the 80s? Yeah, absolutely. The great thing with the Hobie Cat, just generally, the Hobie 16, when we're talking 14 or 16, these boats that were built all the way back through the 70s, is they're so well built that a boat from the 80s is likely to still be absolutely solid if it's been looked after. The thing to look at when you're looking at an older boat or even a newer boat, there's boats from the 2000s which go soft, is just look at, go and do a bit of, what would you call it? Amateur surveying work on the hulls. So like this area here, just forwards of where the beam is, this is one of the main, in fact, it's not one of, this is the most likely spot on the hull to go soft, because this is a spot where it takes a lot of strain because of the loading of the rig, but also where people are climbing on and off the boat quite a lot. But so what you're looking for is, if you are looking at a used boat, just put a hand on that part of the deck and do a little bit like CPR, just push it in. And a boat which is in good condition, which isn't soft, if you push it quite hard, it's not going to move. So that is what you're looking for with how solid the boat is there. You should also perform that on the sides of the hulls, both sides, inside and outside. If I would say the biggest alarm bells, although this is the most likely place to go soft, it might be a bit soft there, but don't say, all right, I'm not buying the boat if it's soft. If the price is good, that softness can be repaired. Whereas the place where you absolutely don't want to buy the boat if it's soft is if it's on the outside of the hull, because it's the outside of the hull which takes all of the pressure. And yeah, we have had a 16 before which went soft on the outside of the hull, and basically it split, a massive, great big split down the side. And yeah, it was an absolute mission. Fortunately, we're in a sailing school, so we had rib power boats available, but the hull filled up with water, as you'd expect, super quick. And these hulls have got foam buoyancy inside, but it was like the deck was just under the water, so we had to lash it to the side of the power boat so that we could get it back in to the beach. This was difficult. So if the outside of the hull is soft, don't go near it. If the inside of the hull is soft, I'd kind of say that is a little bit more worrying than the deck. Because if you capsize, you might stand on the inside of the hull. You will stand on the inside of the hull, which means it could get worse much quicker. All right, so there we go. But yes, 80s boats, they're making a comeback. All right, Marco says, oh, that's Marco. All right, yeah, Marco, I've got you in the preloaded with your question. All right, so Marco says, I'll read your one in the live chat, I think. I ordered a GoPro today and I'm not sure how best to attach it. I have to admit, I really like GoPro questions because I'm really into it. I'm admitting that. Yeah, GoPro, bit of a sale on at the moment, sort of Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale, where I think they're offering something like $100 off the price of a new camera, which, you know, that's not to be sniffed at. So yeah, mounting possibilities on a catamaran that doesn't have a boom or a bowsprit. So in my notes, I put this will be like on a Hobie 15, which it will be. So here is one. All right, and I happen to have a box of mounts just here that you can't see, which is handy. So which one we do first? We'll do the standard one first. This is the most popular angle, and it's popular for a reason, and that is bridle wires pointing backwards at the boat. Oh, I'd just like to say thanks very much to Stylus for your super sticker, keeping the Q&A ad-free. Yes. Yeah, so two reasons why this is such a great view. It's because it's a really solid place to put your camera. It's also a place where your camera is going to be the safest because there are unlikely to be people there. On a boat which has got a boom, whenever I put a camera on the boom, and everybody who's sailed with me when I've had a camera on the boom knows this, I will constantly be saying during a tack or a jibe, watch out for the camera. Whereas camera on the bridle wires, you just put it there. You can walk along the bow to record if you want to, or use your phone as a remote. In fact, this is the people ask me, how come you just use GoPro and not the other cameras? But I can show you. It's because on the app, all of the different cameras are on there, so I can just flick between the different cameras, and that is so handy. Yeah, incidentally. So the other reason why this is such a great place to put your camera is because it's the place where your lens is least likely to get wet. Yes, the cameras are, of course, waterproof, but if you're sailing in a saltwater location, especially if it's hot, what happens is you get water on the lens of the camera, then before the camera has a chance to get splashed again, the water on the lens, it gets cooked by the heat and you get a salty film on the lens and your footage is ruined. Yes. So yeah, that is a constant difficulty which you don't get with this mounting option. So the one that I use most often for that position, this is actually one that I made myself out of parts that I bought on eBay. This basically slots either side of the stay adjuster where the jib attaches, which be pretty similar on most boats. Then I've got a homemade quick pin, which basically goes through, and then the elastic just goes over itself there like that. Very nice. Yes. And then the camera goes onto the bottom facing backwards. Very good. And I find like on a Nacra 570 or any boat bigger than 16 feet is on a GoPro, set it on wide, because then you get you'll still get the people on the trapeze on both tacks, but if you set it to super view, then you start getting that distortion which doesn't look quite as pleasing. All right, so next option for this mounting is this was actually made by Aubrey, who was at the Hilton Head regatta, and he gave me one of these. He's made this with a 3D printer, and I believe that he found the what do you call it, the file for the shape online. If you want, if you've got a 3D printer and you'd like me to, I can reach out to Aubrey, find out where he, or if he made a file for this, but that does the same thing. Now, the other way of attaching the bridle wire cam, this is called the Office Hands Dave. Very different. So basically, you could use one of those plastic GoPro connectors here, but I've made one from metal just because I sail in heavy winds a lot. I want to know that it's not going to break. We then have a carabiner, clips onto the shackle where the bridles join, and then camera goes here, and then each side we've got elastic which needs to be tight, another clip, that clip goes on to the bow tang, both sides, so it's held tight, but it only works because we've got stabilization on the camera. So if you haven't got stabilization, then that's not going to work. Choose something more like this. What other options have we got? A great favorite of mine, as you'll know, is the head cam. I'd say with the head cam, spend a little bit of time making sure that the angle that you've got it pointing is right, because there's nothing worse than coming in thinking I got some solid gold there, to find out your camera was either looking at the sails the whole time or looking at the trampoline the whole time. What people want to see and what you're going to want to see is what you saw at the time. And if you are using the head cam, just be really mindful that your head is then the tripod. So try not to make too many head movements and just think, right, we're going forwards. I'm looking forwards, going to keep my head pointing that way. If you can give the head cam to the crew, even better, because they can look everywhere in a very focused way. Like if there's stuff going on behind your boat, like you're being chased by dolphins, then they could just be staring, and you look a bit odd doing it, but just really focused. Okay, another great one for any type of boat is using something like this, and perhaps an extension piece like this. You can put this on the tiller arm or on the tiller connecting bar. If you put it on the tiller connecting bar, you just have to be really careful when you're tacking or jibing not to hit it with your tiller extension, of course. And then the final one, and one that I do quite a lot, is it's not quite as practical for the actual sailing, but that is to use a stick, which I would usually put it on the starboard side, but here we're sailing on port tack. So I'd lash one end of the stick to the dolphin striker, and then the stick would go up here and out the side. And the other end of the stick would go on top of the hull, of course, and lash around the trampoline. And I would generally put, where are we here? Some sort of swivel on the end of the stick like this, unless I'm using a 360 camera, so that you can rotate the camera so that it's pointing directly at you or where it is that you want it to point. But with the same stick, another cool thing you can do is use it like a bowsprit. So lash one end to the dolphin striker, have the other end. If you've got a windsurfing mast, make sure the two pieces can't separate, and then have it like a massively long bowsprit, camera on the end, and the pictures you get from that are very cool. So there you go, Marco. I hope that is helpful, and everyone else, of course. And I'd just like to say thank you very much to RJ Fleet for the super sticker. Okay, so RJ Fleet says, I think my wife disputed a super sticker charge I sent you last week. My apologies. Here's that one, and one for this week's commercial free chat. Thanks. Thank you very much, RJ Fleet. That's very decent of you to help with the super sticker, keeping it ad free. We've got Max from Germany, 67 channel member from Germany. Is that a Max that I know? Would that be Max from Rosenheim, Germany, under a new name? Or yeah, I'm intrigued. Always nice to know if I know who I know. Okay, so yes, we've been going over an hour now, and I've just got a question that I was going to answer from the preloaded, and this was from Christian, who is either in the northwest of the USA or in Canada. Can't quite remember. Oh, Max is from Herne. Oh, nice to have you on board, Max. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being a channel member. Great stuff. So Christian is talking about, and I'm trying to put him off there. He's talking about the fact that he doesn't like on the Catamaran, because he's a monohull sailor originally, putting two tiller extensions on the boat so that he doesn't have to change sides with the tiller extension when tacking or jibing. And he's also been talking about putting a Hobie Wave-style system on where the tiller connecting bar is further forwards than the main sheet, so you can really just tack like on a monohull. Now, the problem with that, straight off, is all right, I'm going to somehow put this tiller connecting bar on in colors here. So the connecting bar further forwards, let's say it's there. But the problem with this is when you go for a tack, we all know if we're going to helm on the trapeze, or even if we're going to sail the boat efficiently, we need quite a long tiller extension, which means if you're tacking and your intention is to take the tiller extension round like this, is everyone getting this? The problem is it's going to hit on the mast. Yeah. This was the problem that I had when I was doing helming on the trapeze on the MiniCat because with a fixed length tiller extension, and I really had to time it in order to get the tiller extension round. So that is the why not. But rather than focusing on the why not, the what to do is, in fact, just going to do this a bit more nicely. So if you'll bear with me for a second, you could talk amongst yourselves. By the way, while I'm drawing this, I'd just like to draw your attention to the time of year. Yes, Christmas is coming, and great Christmas gifts are custom Joyrider t-shirts like this one. Get your sail colors, your boat name, anything else that you want on a t-shirt. But what I need to draw your attention to is the clock is ticking, or actually it's more like the advent calendar is ticking. So if you are thinking of putting in a Christmas order for anything from totaljoyrider.com, do it sooner rather than later, because you don't want to be worrying about, is it going to arrive on time? I will be finding out this weekend what the latest order dates are, but I'm doing free customization. So if you want any of the designs that are on the website, customizing so that whoever receives them will be like, oh, you've gone to an amazing effort there to make me a very personal gift. Thank you very much. People love stuff that is made personal to them. So boat name, sail number as well. We could put on there sail colors if you've got colored sails, or white sails, whatever you like. Yeah, just let me know. You'll find my email address on the website. So there we go. All right, maneuvering with the tiller extension. So this would be in the context of a tack, but you can use this for anything else. Any other maneuvers, like a jibe. All right, could have just said that. Okay, so when you go into the tack, what I would suggest that you do, so we're sailing along here. In fact, I'm just going to draw it on. We've pushed the rudders across, rest the tiller extension like this. So it's resting on the hull, or if you've got a sidebar, or maybe it'll either rest on the hull or the sidebar, and just have it resting there as you push, once you've pushed the rudders across. Because one extra thing that this will do by resting the tiller extension here is it will lock in that angle of steering. So that means one of the reasons why tacks fail, especially, is while you're moving across the boat, the angle of the rudders just have a little bit of, it's not constant. You might cross the boat and the rudders point the other way for a second, and then your tack is ruined. So rest your tiller extension down here, and then keep it there. And then when you go to cross the boat, only think about moving the tiller extension once you are really in the middle of the boat. Then grab the tiller extension right down here, and then from there it's pretty easy to swing it round. So we're going to swing it round. Actually, let's be consistent with red. We're going to swing it round like this. We're not going to take it upwards. We're going to swing it outwards all the way round the back. And then once we've got it all the way round the back, we're going to rest it down on the new hull. Again, that's going to make it much easier to maintain a constant angle of steering on the new side of the boat. And then we can adjust. We can also, by having it there and there, you can actually, when you pushing down to get up onto your knees, you can just push down where the tiller extension is. So hand on the tiller and the hull to get up. Works really well. There we go. All right. So I hope that helps, Christian. Don't put twin sticks on your 16. There's no need, really. No need for twin sticks. The way that it's been designed and sailed by hundreds of thousands of people over the years is fine. All right. So we're going to finish off now with we've just got Boris in the live chat. Since you're on the subject, and if you still have time, could you talk about the rudders and materials? At this point, I think we have to do that, do with what we have. Even the EPOs are hard to find. Yeah, you say even the EPOs, definitely the EPOs are hard to find. So there's a few different gauges of rudder blade, and one of the earlier videos that I ever made on the channel was actually a comparison of different rudder blade constructions between the popular ones, and kind of like let's call it what it is. Bottom of the range is there's one which is below the Lexan rudder blades, and this is very much, I don't even know what the material would be called. It's like it's plastic, but it's almost got a bit of a rubberiness to it. So they are really bendy, which means if you're sailing in light winds, slowly, not much load, it doesn't matter what rudder blades you're using. It's only when you start getting to that hull flying kind of wind when you're going to start noticing between different types of rudder blade. So let's call them the rubber rudder blades. Yeah, they bend earliest. When a rudder blade bends, you'll get this kind of rudder stall kind of feeling, which basically means you're getting turbulence around the rudder blades. Then the next one up from the rubber ones are the Lexan ones, which are these ones that when you tap on them, it sounds like they're made of metal, but they're not. They're like fiberglass material. They're the ones that create the very low-pitched humming noise. They bend, but not as much as the rubber ones. There we go. The next up the range would be the fiberglass rudder blades that Hobie have been using for a very long time. They are generally excellent. They don't bend very much at all. They feel great, but for me, they were not practical because they were a little bit too fragile, and I did snap one rudder blade on average every 3 weeks, which, you know, my situation is pretty unique in that I was back then sailing every single day in 20, 25, 30 knots of wind, pushing the boat really hard, and not just going out sailing for 4 hours every day in those conditions, which puts the maximum amount of strain on the rudders. So then above those were called the white knight rudder blades, and with apologies to people from other boat brands, but my knowledge really is only in Hobie's and not in other brands. I think in other brands you don't have such a wide choice. Like if you're sailing a Dart 18, the rudder blades are the rudder blades, and that's all that you get. So that's it. Conversation closed. Easy. But on the Hobie, there is a lot more choice. So the next best, the better than the White Knight, then we come into the EPO rudder blades, and the number on the EPO rudder blades basically is an indication of what period they were from. And as you'd expect, as we move through the periods, there's been a 1, a 2, and a 3. The 3 really is as good as you'd hope for. But yes, they are almost impossible to come by. So almost worth, this would be a pretty decent trick, is to look for a used Hobie 16 and find a used Hobie 16. Oh, thanks very much, Christian. Christian's on board, everybody, who we've just been talking about the tiller extension thing. I hope that was helpful. Yeah, find a used Hobie 16 that's got EPO 3 rudder blades on it, or EPO 2 rudder blades. Swap the rudder blades for your Lexan rudder blades and then put it back up for sale. There we go. And because if you feel that you need EPO rudder blades, you're obviously going out in some wind. You want your boat to feel crispy, and you want rudder blades that are really going to perform for you. Whereas somebody buying your boat, the boat that you've just bought to take the rudder blades off, this isn't unscrupulous, by the way. This is fine. The person buying the boat might be like really in the beginner level of sailing, where they might be more likely to damage those beautiful EPOs, and you're doing the world a favor by keeping those rudder blades safe. There we go. Perhaps that's a bit of an unrealistic method of finding the right rudder blades, but there we go. Okay, so we've been going for an hour and a quarter, and I think that will probably do for today, because I've heard it's here in Greece, it's dinner time. So thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks very much to everybody for the super stickers, keeping the Q&A ad free. You guys are legends. And yes, get your t-shirt orders in this week for your Christmas shopping. T-shirts, hoodies, hats. Great Christmas gift idea would be a channel membership to the Joyrider Academy. Perhaps if there's someone in your life who could really do with having some lessons, then there we go. Yeah, so, oh, this is exciting as well. Just before I started the Q&A today, I just finished editing the new What Went Wrong video, which will be coming on Sunday at the usual time, unless you happen to be a channel member, where you get to see it as soon as it's out. I haven't uploaded it yet. I'll be doing that tomorrow morning, Greek time, which will mean if you're in the USA, that means when you get up, it will be there. So you will get to see that ahead of everyone else, if that helps. Thank you very much. So What Went Wrong, 6:30 Greek time on Sunday, and it is a good one. So thanks very much, and I'll see you there with some more at that time. Cheers. Goodbye.